you a parent or a grandparent that's concerned about your child or grandchild and how the secular world is moving the culture of America today? What are they doing to our children and grandchildren? If you have that question in mind, I want to tell you what Adam Joseczyk and the Forge Leadership Group is doing for our future leaders of America. Hey, Adam, how you doing?
Yeah, great, Hunter. Thanks for having me here.
Okay. Tell the audience a little bit about your background and where you've come from and what you're doing.
I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio, and long-suffering Cincinnati Bengals fan. Of course, went to college in Ohio, met my wife, Bible study. We settled down in Southwest Ohio, and I started getting involved in conservative politics as well as some Christian nonprofits in the Buckeye State. Well, we started realizing, a couple friends and I started realizing a trend in Ohio, and then that was being matched nationally, was that there wasn't really a farm system, to use a baseball term. There wasn't really a minor leagues, a talent development pipeline for young people of conservative convictions, those who cared about our founding principles, those who cared about a Christian worldview, to be able to plug in to impact public policy and culture. So we set out to create that farm system where we could mentor, train, and connect the next generation of conservative leaders in politics, business, and culture.
Yeah, I understand there was two of you that co-founded this organization called Forge Leadership Movement. Is that correct?
Yes, Forge Leadership Network was founded by Justin Powell and myself about 5 years ago.
Okay. Now I want this audience to know a little more about you, because I see where you finished summa cum laude at the University of Dayton in 2011. You were a William F. Buckley Award winner. You were a recipient of the Timothy Award from the Citizens of Community Values in 2017. I just think the audience needs to know a little bit about the honors and the accolades that you've received and why you've been placed by God in the middle of this leadership team. I know you don't want to brag on yourself. I want them to know who you are, Adam, and why you're the one chosen to lead this organization.
Look, I think my personal mission statement is to connect people who can create value together for the kingdom of God.
Yeah.
I love people are my life and my passion, and I love connecting ideas and people specifically who can create value for what is good and true and noble, like Micah 6:8 and like Philippians talks about. And so God has blessed that heart that he's given me and that personality that he's given me in Justin to be able to basically try to replicate the friendships and accountability and mentorships that were so crucial to us being able to stay on the straight and narrow in politics and in cultural engagement, to replicate that into hundreds and thousands of next generation leaders. Yeah. So we basically view this as an extension of that spark that God started with all of the networks that he placed in my life so generously.
And your co-founder, Justin, tell the audience about his roots and what he's doing today.
Yeah, Justin Powell grew up in Western Ohio, in a place called Dark County, Ohio, and has been at 30 years old, he has the fastest growing billboard company in the country. Very innovative and sharp, savvy businessman, has done an amazing job in the outdoor advertising field. And Justin had a heart, we both had a heart for the pro-life cause, and connected on a local campaign that was being run. The candidate was a mentor of ours from my time in college with the Navigators Ministry, had actually been Justin's youth minister when Justin was a little kid, and connected us. And we basically said, you know what? We want to impact the public square, the realm of ideas, government, politics, these things. But we've seen there are a lot of people in this for the wrong reasons and that are hungry for power and the lust of power and all these things. So we need somebody whose trust we can share, who actually cares more about us and our motives and my marriage and all these things than any success we might achieve in business or politics or any of that. And so that was really what sparked Forge Leadership Network.
Now, I was fortunate to get to go to Washington, D.C. a couple of weeks ago and see part of the Forge Leadership Program and speak to the young people. But I also saw a young lady who I think is a sibling of Justin was the youngest elected state rep in Ohio. Who was that?
That's right. One of Forge Leadership Network's most illustrious graduates is a young lady by the name of Jenna Powell. Jenna is the youngest state representative in the Buckeye State, one of the youngest in the nation. Is really doing a fantastic job. She's a businesswoman by trade and has been doing a tremendous job in the state capitol advocating for life and free enterprise and limited government and doing an excellent job.
I want to, in a minute, I want you to address the program. Now, this is what y'all's 5th year to have Forge Leadership in place.
Yes, sir.
And I know you take these young people through stages, but tell the audience just without naming names, the diversity of your program and where do these young men and women come from and what schools they belong to and what issues are in their life that's led them to. And I call it a GAP program. Really, your program is for young men and women between 18 and 25. Is that correct?
Yes.
So tell us about them.
Yes.
And who they are, where they're coming from, and what you've done in 5 years' time.
Well, in Forge Leadership Network, our vision is to raise up that next generation of conservative leaders in the public square. And so we do this by mentoring and training and then connecting these 18 to 25-year-olds so that they can lead in the vocations that they're called to that are going to impact policy and culture. Now, these young people come in from across, they come to us from across the Midwest and across the nation. We've had students from 29 different states now in 5 years. They come to us from all over the country, and they're pursuing different vocations, but they're all passionate about applying our founding principles and our Judeo-Christian worldview to the cultural issues of the day. So this is mainly undergraduate college students. So they're at their colleges or have already graduated and are starting in the workforce. And when they come to Forge, the main event that they're coming to is the Forge Leadership Summit. The way that a young person could get involved with Forge would be applying right now for the Forge Leadership Summit. The Forge Leadership Summit is 5 days of an intensive leadership experience. It's timeless principles with renowned speakers. It's practical skills like messaging and interviewing and networking and public speaking, as well as in a legislative experience at a state house, at a state capitol. And then out of those 5 days, we choose the best and brightest to be with us for a year. And they're back at school or back at their job full time, but they're connected with each other, debating current events, having special monthly conference calls with leaders in different vocations, as well as then they get together twice that year, once in DC for next level training and networking. You spoke to our students this year, a couple weeks ago in DC, as well as then 6 months after that, after they've gained this state level knowledge, national, domestic knowledge in DC, then they go 6 months later through a partner organization, Passages, to Israel. And they spend 10 days getting to better know the roots of their biblical faith, but also come face to face with the geopolitics of the Middle East and understanding the U.S. and Israel relationship, the U.S.'s role in the region, an incredible crash course in international affairs. The whole crown jewel of that, though, is that in that process, in that year, they've been paired, handpicked, matched with a mentor who is doing what they want to be doing in 20 years, who has the character, integrity, and the success in their field to mentor them very well.
And you mentioned this earlier. During this process, they're picking mentors out, and then they're having monthly conversations or group. Tell how that works.
Yes, their one-on-one mentor, their personal mentor, has at least one conversation a month with them for 6 months. Sometimes that's in person. Sometimes because of the vocational calling, we might find a great fit that's across the country, and they'll use FaceTime or phone call or something like that. But they're getting together, so to speak, once a month. At least they're inviting them to one type of shadowing experience, as well as then they're giving them resources like books to read that they think have been really pivotal on their path forward.
You told me a story about a student who selected somebody in the area of agriculture, and tell the audience Who ended up being the mentor for this young lady that wanted to reach out in that area of science and was interested in it?
Well, that's right. We had a young lady who was finishing up her MPA at Ohio's Master's in Public Affairs from Ohio State University. So she was a Midwestern. She's a Midwesterner, grew up in a rural community, and cared a lot about the intersection of agriculture and public policy, and wanted a mentor, a Christian woman in agricultural policy expertise. I thought, this is really going to stretch my networks.
Yeah.
And we made a few calls, and thanks to the Forge Network and all the people who care about paying it forward, who care about mentorship, and what, as Christians we call discipleship, I got a call from the state of Kansas, from the Secretary of Agriculture for the entire state of Kansas, and a cabinet member by the name of Jackie McClaskey under the Sam Brownback administration. Conservative hero. And she called and said, I see this young lady's profile. I've read about her, and I think she has a tremendous future. I'd love to mentor her. I said, so do you have a staff member who would mentor her? She goes, I'd like to mentor her. So we've had some amazing chiefs of staff, former elected officials, leaders in free enterprise, folks like yourself who just of high standing, high achievement, who have mentored young persons. We had a former national secretary of like in the national leadership in the Defense Department mentor. It's been incredible.
I wasn't able to attend the full week of leadership in Washington 2 weeks ago, but in my short time, I saw Senator Josh Hawley speaking to the young men and women who is kind of a rising star out of the state of Missouri, who was a attorney general for 2 years, and then he got elected to the U.S. Senate, beating a presiding senator.
Yeah.
And I know he's a man of conservative values, but he's also very young. He's 40 years old, so he speaks the language of these young people, and he is also the one taking on Google and others who he wants to restrict and protect our constitutional rights to our property, to where people can't be GPSing us everywhere we walk around this earth without our consent. And so I'm curious on your take on the Senator Hawley. I listened to part of it. I was impressed by him. I know, I think you're personal friends with his chief of staff or somebody on his staff. So tell me about that interaction between the senator and the Forge Leadership Group.
Yeah, the students in our network, again, we've had so many generous servant leaders, because that's what we're...
And I'm using him only as an example, because I know Congressman Meadows, I know that Paul Teller, the senior legislative assistant to the president, and many others spoke to these people, but I did hear Senator Hawley. So,
and Senator Hawley is one of these servant leaders who cares about investing in the next generation, and raising up a generation known for their statesmanship, their innovation, their dedication to the truth and values that we hold dear. And so Senator Hawley, along with, like you said, Congressman Meadows, Congressman Jim Jordan, so many conservative heroes in our legislature nationally, got together with the students 2 weeks ago in DC, gave them an incredible amount of time and wisdom from their life. And I think Senator Josh Hawley is somebody to really keep an eye on.
Yeah.
I think he's got a very interesting vision of making sure that we don't view success as a country just in GDP, but in the strength of our families, strength of our community ties, and all that. And in addition to obviously the market principles that have allowed our economies to flourish. But I think that's an interesting thing. These young conservatives are really trying to figure out what is conservatism, what is liberty for, and why do we advocate for what is good and true, and how does that actually reflect in people's lives?
And because I dipped my toe in politics years ago, and you're involved in politics, I'm cautious to use that term, but that is a political term that they like to use, and that's a rising star in politics. And this man is young, and he's bright, Ivy League educated, and is coming from a Midwestern state, and is seemed to be making a huge push forward in the conservative movement. So tell the audience what you believe the definition of a conservative is.
No, that's a great question. I think at the root of the word conservatives a desire to conserve, right, and a desire to conserve what is good and what has been tried and true throughout history. That doesn't mean that we don't make reforms when our laws don't measure up to the ideals as laid out in our Constitution and our Declaration, right? As Frederick Douglass and Martin Luther King, said. They said, look, our Constitution was perfect. A Declaration is perfect. We need to live up to those ideals when they were fighting for civil rights and all that. So we make reforms, but we're trying to conserve the best wisdom of mankind, right? And we look at these strong foundations. We look at these were human beings who were frail and flawed just like us, and as Christians we know they were sinners and all that, but they came together and our founders did an amazing thing. God, providence was all over that, and what they've come up with in these documents that our country is founded on are incredibly accurate as it relates to human nature, as it relates to setting up a government that would work, as Adam or Madison said, despite the human beings involved, that would check ambition with ambition, and that would check balances. And so as conservatives, I think we recognize that you don't just throw out years of best practices, is what we'd call it in business, without proof, right? And so I think, many progressives or liberals in the United States want to do all this social engineering and totally transform America, right? And conservatives say, hold on a second, we want the proof, right? As you're an attorney, and the judge needs the burden of proof, right? And so I think conservatives are known for strong families, for the right to life for all of our most vulnerable citizens, the unborn, for trying to empower those families, men and women who will raise those children, for limited government, that the government that governs best is that which is limited and local as much as it can be, that local government knows better, a community knows better what to do than a bureaucrat thousands of miles away in most cases. All of these things, strong defense, strong markets, strong families. I think this is the conservatism that has to continue to represent the best of who we are as Americans.
You're right. That's a great definition, a great explanation, and of course you know that I was inspired by this scripture of Micah 6:8 about the prophet telling the Hebrews who were caught up in idolatry, greed, immorality, everything in the world. But he says, our God is just, and so there'll be consequences for these poor choices. But at the same time, he's merciful. He's merciful. He always encouraged them. His contemporary Isaiah did the same thing. They were just at the same time frame at different locations. They called Micah the country prophet, and they called Isaiah the city prophet. But so we're seeing that today. We're seeing just that. But he said, do justice, love mercy, and walk with humility to your God. And I see your program as one of a firm educational, but a training of these young men and women how to do just this, but do it with humility. We do it based upon what we know to be truths. We do it because we're committed. We know that the world doesn't arise around feelings, and this progressive liberal movement has used the so-called feelings of people to be the motivating factor. And we know that we don't choose the color of our skin, and that Dr. King was pretty accurate in trying to move that
the
out
content of one's character.
That's correct. And but we do make choices and behavior that we're accountable for. And that's where they're trying to move the pendulum away to say we have to do things. And I say I'm talking about the progressives and the liberals, that we have to adjust our laws and adjust our culture and adjust our society because of our feelings. So we know love is a commitment. So I suspect you discipline your little girl when she's and that might be just pulling her back from touching a hand, touching a fire that's going to burn her. So we discipline the ones we love. And so far, this progressive secular movement, they want to convolute and distort that word. I don't know how you feel about it. I just kind of gave you a statement about how I feel about it.
Oh, that's right. But love is we know love love biblically, that the word love gets thrown around a lot to justify a lot of things, but love has someone's best in mind. Love wants what's best for someone, not what might make them happy in that moment. Happiness is a goal, but true joy is found in living out the way that we were designed as our creator, right? If I have a car designed one way, if I try to operate it in a way it's not designed, I'm going to have all kinds of fits and starts and struggles because it's not designed for that. But if I'm operating it the way it's designed, this is going to be good. So that might be a silly analogy, but if it doesn't desire someone's ultimate good and eternal good, I read this the other day. If love does not desire someone's eternal good, it's not love. Yeah. And so as we talk about that, but servant leadership, we talked about humility. Jesus Christ came in the fullness of grace and truth, the Bible says, and we need not decouple those, right? So we hope that the young people that come through Forge have a posture of humility and servant leadership, because if God became man and said, I came not to be served, but to serve, who are we not to follow in that? And if our ultimate goal is truth, not just political victories, then we'll keep our compass, we'll keep that humility if we know our relationship with him, and hopefully we'll be able to maintain that witness throughout, that no one might speak down of us because of our character or something, that even in our disagreements in the public square, in the courtrooms, in the halls of Congress and the legislators, that we would honor our opponents as image bearers of God. I think that's incredibly important, and sometimes I feel like that's slipping a little bit in our modern Twitter keyboard warrior culture.
Right. You know that we're sitting here in the first courtroom that was built in this city, this federal courtroom, at a historical location, and that for a century, this was the prevalent courthouse in this area of the country, and this presentation today and this discussion that we're having today is really about standing with justice. Mm-hmm. And as you pointed out, Jesus spent a third of his ministry on earth talking about the injustices. Mm-hmm. And so going back to Micah, I mean, he was particularly emphasizing not only that they have to do justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with their God, but that involved taking care of the poor, standing up for those that are oppressed, and those that are taken advantage of. And so as a leader like yourself, who are speaking to the future leaders of America, you need to emphasize, and I know I'm preaching to the preacher now a little bit, that you need to emphasize that they should lead from the heart and the mind, and that they and not ever masquerade or be phony baloney or have an ultimate or agenda that is not from what's been given to them from our Heavenly Father. And so I know you're doing that, and that's why I invited you to this program today, and I think you've been a great inspiration to this audience.
We hope that many more young people will continue to thrive in this program. We'll be able to serve them, and like you said, caring for people, that's what it's all about. We've got young people who are going into politics and law and business, others who are nurses and community leaders and pastors and whatever, who care about, Jeremiah, God tells the Israelites, seek the good of the city in which I've placed you. Yeah. And that's what it's all about, love of neighbor.
If somebody wants to go apply for the Forge Leadership Program, tell the audience how they would do that, how they would get in touch with you or Justin or the organization.
If they know of, or if they are an 18 to 25-year-old, they should apply right now, actually. It's a great time. They can apply right now for the Forge Leadership Summit. This is a 5-day leadership experience, the timeless principles, practical skills, and legislative process. And it's their road to all of those mentorships, to all of that one-on-one pouring into their lives, the DC and Israel experiences, and more. And the way that they can do that is by going on our website, forgeleadership.org, and to click apply. They can learn about the Forge Leadership Summit. If they're a young Christian, young conservative, and they care about policy and culture, no matter what career that's going to take them into, this program is for them and will change their lives.
And as I understand it, this is not a denominational thing. This is for Judeo-Christian principles for conservatives and believers. Am I correct?
That's right. We're motivated by our Christian faith. The students don't have to sign any religious statement. So we'll get students from a variety of different denominations, different paths, and they all care about these ideas and principles, and they're all trying to pursue truth in community.
Okay. And the 2 opportunities means that y'all are going to do 2 tracks this year. Is that correct?
We have 2 Forge Leadership Summits, yes, and then they will actually merge into one Mentorship Academy. And they can learn about the Mentorship Academy at forgeleadership.org. If they click on the About Us, they'll learn about the Leadership Summit, which is how they'd start with us, and then the Mentorship Academy that we'll choose from.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Hunter.
God
Thanks
bless.
for this opportunity.
Bye-bye. Well, Adam, I know that most of the progressive and liberal movement today comes from the colleges and universities around America, professors that have implanted progressiveness and secularism and liberalism into the minds of young people. I know that this country for 150 years stood on those Judeo-Christian principles that it was founded on, but then we saw, and you can correct me if you want, we saw a degradation begin in these universities. First, when we took prayer out of schools, then in 1973, Roe versus Wade, where we started allowing the abortions to be legal under any circumstances. And, and since 1973, there's been 67 million babies killed. Mm-hmm. We also know that there's been a movement in recent years to promote an attack on the creationism of God, that He created man and woman to multiply. So we see an agenda that attacks that. We see an agenda that attacks the lives of unborn children that we need to protect. We see an agenda of meism, as I call it. It's all about me, it's all about I, it's about this. Tell me what y'all are doing. I think you said as a Delta Force or a special force group to change all of that and to get this country back on track and training up these leaders.
Yeah. Well,
do you agree with my
That's
analogy?
right. No, that's right. Our mission is very specifically to mentor, train, and then launch young conservatives who are going to impact policy, business, and culture. But we're not under any auspices that we can save every college student in America and change their mind after decades of being taught to romanticize Marxism and worship the god of the sexual revolution and social engineering and all this stuff. We're not going to save them all, but what we can do throughout history, throughout biblical history, throughout American history, you see how a small group of committed people, who use their godly gifts in community with each other can make an incredible difference. So we believe that if we can, like you said, provide kind of the Delta Force of the young conservative movement who are known and vetted for their trustworthiness, for their competency, for their character, for their skill, then in decades to go, that's gonna pay huge dividends, right? We might not be able to convert everybody to right thinking, but we can really equip the young people out there who are yearning for truth and to see America live out its founding principles in this 21st century climate or context.
And I know there's many other groups that they have a little different premise and a little different direction, but they're trying to accomplish. And there's individuals, and I'll mention some of them, like Ben Shapiro and Charlie Kirk to some degree, and Dinesh D'Souza. I can go down the list of people that are approaching the conservative movement using either faith, academia, or truths to see that. And I look at Forge Leadership as the one that's out front doing that. But I know you welcome opportunities to speak in colleges and universities. Do you not?
Absolutely. No, we welcome that, and we draw heavily from students from all kinds of different universities and those who aren't in university who are working on that or doing online and community colleges as well. But we love to speak on campuses and different conferences and events. We'll be at the Students for Life conference tomorrow, speaking and helping facilitate some panels there about how to enter politics, how to enter media, how to do these, how to enter law and these things. And so, yes, a young person who cares about these things has a lot of good options nowadays. There is an excitement in the young conservative movement. And if they really want something that might not be the flashiest or that, but is going to invest in them and invest specifically in a small group of people that is continuing to grow leaps and bounds, a small group of people over a long period of time, and will leverage all of our networks on their behalf, that's us. That's Forge. They should go to forgeleadership.org and apply right now.
Well, I'm convinced, and I appreciate it very much, Adam. Well, thank you.
Andre, thank you so much.